this Penn State-Ohio State game went about how we thought. Went about exactly how we thought. Loved the under in this game when it came out at 47, whatever, ended up at 45 and a half. But the biggest question was, can Penn State hit enough explosive plays offensively to be able to score enough to beat Ohio State? And David, they took a couple shots down the field, but it seemed like at least for the first 2.5 quarters, Drew Aller was really, really sped up. I thought Jim Knowles did a good job of keeping everything in front. Last year they talked about the blitz rate, Ohio State bringing a bunch of pressure, playing skinny in the back end. I mean, Aller ended up going 18 of 42 for 191 yards and a touchdown. The leading rusher for Penn State had under 50 yards. That was Singleton. And then you look, Lambert Smith, who was their only receiver to have over 100 yards in a game this season receiving, only had 52 yards. Not that Ohio State blew it out of the water on offense, and I thought Penn State's defense really stepped up, but Marvin Harrison Jr. made a couple plays. We saw Stover make a couple plays. Mayan Williams popped a couple runs. I mean, Maserati Marvin ended up with 162 yards and a touchdown on 11 catches.
We heard that phrase enough, didn't we? Career high in receptions for Marvin Harrison Jr., 11 receptions. And even when he's not catching the football, look how he's impacting the game. On the strip sack fumble for Penn State that got called back, that was because of a holding call on Marvin Harrison Jr. Look, Penn State's defense to me lived up to the billing. They really did. I mean, they gave the team a chance to win. They're just on the field a lot because the offense can't move the football. And if you're going to go on the road to a place like Columbus and you're going to pull an upset like this and your quarterback's going to go 18 of 42 and you're going to rush for 49 yards, then you really need to be perfect elsewhere in special teams or to have, some sort of big play like the one that they had that didn't get called back. Chop Robinson going off the field didn't help either. But what I'm talking about, like in the second half, remember when Penn State did force a punt from the Buckeyes in their own end zone? You have a fair catch there at midfield that is not fielded and you lose 25 yards of field position. All of a sudden you're starting at the 25 when you had an opportunity right there. A couple other things, 3rd and 13 in the red zone in the first half, you run the ball, you settle for a field goal. Okay, 3rd and 13, maybe you can say, hey, young quarterback, let's get 3 and move on. They did it again later in the game. In the red zone, 3rd down and 5, 3rd and 3, something like that. Again, they run the football and settle for a field goal. It's like you can't do those sorts of things and think you're going to go on the road and beat the Buckeyes.
Well, when that punt happened, I said it was the biggest play of the game so far, and it may not manifest itself. By the way, that was a hold on the defensive touchdown. You can say, oh, there's holding every play, but you held their best player out in the open when that was the read and they were going to. It was right in front of the official. The official, if you watch who threw the flag, had no idea what was going on in the backfield at that time. It wasn't like, oh, hey, the defense made a great play, but there was a hold here I didn't call, so let me go ahead and throw the flag. I understand a lot of times it depends on what side you're on. If you're a Penn State fan, you complain. If you're an Ohio State fan, well, it's obvious he was holding him. But no, that game was going to come down, typically like those games do, to 3 to 5 plays. And there's not just 3 offensive plays, 3 defensive plays. One thing I did notice, I was very interested to see, was how James Franklin was going to approach first down on offense. I thought early in the game, they were trying to pitch backwards a little bit, right? You saw a ton of slants on first down in the first half by both teams. So they were willing to take some risks on early downs and pitch backwards, but they weren't willing to take the big risks, right? It was kind of the protected throws, almost supplementing the run game with a short passing game. But even then, Aller looked kind of off. You gotta give credit to Ohio State's defense. You got to give credit to Ohio State's DBs. But there were a lot of balls that were low or behind or were too early, and it seemed like the chemistry. And all we heard all week was, oh well, Penn State's been saving it. Penn State's been saving it. Talk about taking the shots, hitting the explosive plays. Well, it's fine to work on those in practice, but you really build chemistry during the game. And when you haven't done that in any of the other games, it's hard to just flip that switch and now all of a sudden you're an explosive offense on the outside. But it seemed like once that passing game on early downs wasn't working for Penn State, they went right back to, hey, we're just going to kind of run it into a wall on first down. It seemed like in the second half, they were in 2nd and 7, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 10 the whole time. And Ohio State was for a lot of times too, Cone. But at the end of the day, one of those teams had Maserati Marvin, and I don't think Kyle McCord played incredibly well.
No,
right?
He missed throws too.
He missed a couple that he'd want back. But Penn State go back to what we said all week, wasn't able to hit those explosive plays and turn red zone appearances into touchdowns. And at the end of the day, that's what cost them.
Yeah, and based off the free release that the Buckeyes were giving, of course, the slants were going to be there. But when you run slant after slant after slant, what does that set up? At some point, you got to run slow go. I mean, we're trying to slant and go this team and hit a big play down the field. Now, early, the Buckeyes came out in that two shell look. So Penn State was running the ball effectively. And look, when you get two high safeties, yeah, run the ball, especially got a young quarterback on the road. And they were able to do that, get in the red zone, kick some of those field goals. But you really saw Jim Knowles really start to dial it in, this I think the Buckeyes are running this cover zero man look half as much as they were a season ago. Remember when they got torched by Michigan? I think that either last year he didn't have the personnel that he thought he could sit back in this two-man sort of look, or maybe like, I don't really know what it is, but the Buckeyes defense has lived up to the billing too. And when you talk about Penn State fans shouldn't be frustrated at that holding call because it was legitimately holding on the strip sack fumble. Look, that was a huge play and it would have given Penn State a lot of momentum. I just don't think down the stretch it would have really mattered. 6 total yards, I think Penn State had in the second half. Like that's not a recipe for winning late games on the road.
Yeah, and if you're James Franklin, I mean, at some point, we keep talking about, oh well, they're going to open it up. They're going to open it up. This was the game, right? That there was a ton of confidence going in this game. You felt like, I mean, they even said during the broadcast that Penn State, with Cal McCord now at quarterback, it was a much more even fight. I guess from a personnel standpoint, I just don't know how you protect the guy when you have to have it in the biggest game you've played all year. It feels like they kind of played it safe, played it close to the vest, even when they needed to have it in the second half. But before we move on to Tennessee, Bama, David, Ohio State right now, where do you rank them?
Well, I think they're doing nothing but trending up. I kind of see a lot of Florida State when I look at the Buckeyes. I don't see a team that has really put together these elite performances week in and week out, but at the same time, they're beating really good teams and they're continuing to win. Kind of like on the NFL level, what the Eagles are doing right now. Just a really good football team that somehow is still figuring it out. And when we talk about this a lot in March Madness when it comes to the NCAA tournament, a lot in playoff baseball, like we were breaking down the Braves this year. But so much of it is playing the right football at the right time and peaking as you sort of enter rivalry week and enter
Yeah.
the conference championships before bowl season. I'm looking at the Buckeyes and Florida State specifically. Are those the type of teams, and maybe even Texas too? Texas getting away with one on the road against Houston. Are those the sorts of teams that really here are going to trend at the right time and figure this out? Or will playing with fire week in and week out sort of come back to bite them late in the season?